YouTube, what's good, what's good? It's your man Diamond back with another episode of Press Record. Thank you for tuning in. If you could do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. It'll definitely do a lot of justice to my page. So, last episode we talked about the G7 and we talked about, I did a review on it talking about if the G7 is still super dope in 2022, which is, 5 years later. And the answer to that would definitely be yes. Definitely a dope camera. However, one of the cons of this camera that we talked about in the last video, if you haven't checked it out, definitely hit the link and check out the last video. But one of the cons we talked about in the last video for this camera was the fact that it doesn't do well with low lighting. So today I'm going to show you how you can get off on this camera with the low lighting. You know what I'm saying? A couple little tips, little tricks I'm going to show you. But the key is surrounded by the lens. Yes, the lens. We're going to talk about it. Okay, so as I was saying, the low lighting magic happens with this lens right here. This is a 25mm G Vario lens for Lumix, for the Lumix line. So now, why is this lens the magical lens? Because this lens has an aperture of 1.7, meaning the aperture ring, you can open it up wider, letting more light in, meaning you can get better shots in low lighting situations. So now, but the key is when you're dealing with lenses that have wider apertures, 1.7, 1.4, 1.2, you got to keep in mind that you're probably going to have to do adjustments to your ISO and your shutter because it's a triangular rule. So in a lot of cases, you can't really adjust one without adjusting the other, so just keep that in mind. So if you're shooting, if you got your aperture open in your ring and you're shooting and it seems a little out, blown out, then you might have to tweak your shutter, you might have to tweak your ISO. So just keep that in mind. So what I'm gonna do real quick right now, I'm gonna show y'all a couple of pictures, these pictures right here. I'm gonna show y'all what I did to them. These are some shots that I took with this camera outside at the park one day. It was freezing. Full disclaimer, it was freezing that day, so you might see a little shake in the video because that was me really shaking in the footage. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna jump in the Lightroom. I'm gonna show you a couple. We're gonna do some light editing. I'm not gonna go hard. We're not gonna use curves and all that. I'm just gonna show you how you can just touch your picture up a little bit, try to get it to pop the way you want it to pop. So let's do it. All right. So this is gonna be the first picture here that we have. This was like some kind of like church. The door looked kind of like a dungeon to me. I kind of liked the way it looked. So I took the shot. So what I'm gonna do here, we're gonna open up this real quick. So first thing I wanna do, I see that, it's fairly decent. It could be worked on. So what I usually do is I never, ever touch the exposure first. I feel like if you touch the exposure first, it'll definitely, it'll just make you work harder with everything else, so to speak. So I leave the exposure for last. But what I do is I go to shadows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump the shadows up a little bit just to give it a little light, just a little bit. Boom. So at this point, I don't touch anything else. We're not going to touch the curves. I'm not going to do it. Now temperature. I touch the temperature. It looks good, but I want the wall to look a little warmer. So I'm just going to warm it up a little bit, just a little bit. Cool. See how warm that looks? Looks a little warmer. I like that right there. Cool. All right. So, and I'm also going to add a little saturation just to make the wall pop a little. Just subtle, a little subtle. Boom, that's it. I just dabbed it in there. That's it. No more else. No more else. That's not even a real word. That's it. No more else. Nothing else. So we're gonna skip all that. Texture. Now, texture is all about taste. I'm probably gonna use a little texture in this shot only because the walls have rocks, and I might want the rocks in the wall to pop a little more. So I'm gonna add a little texture just to make those pop a little. But that's all for taste. Clarity. I'm gonna leave the clarity. Dehaze. You should always add a little dehaze because by default, when you take photos out of cameras, they got like this tint haziness kind of thing. So the dehaze kind of takes that out. Okay. I don't need any of that. Detail. So sharpening. Again, sharpening is a taste, but you don't want to go heavy-handed on the sharpening. Just give it a little bit. I just give it a little bit of juice. I'll bump it up a little bit and then kind of bring it down some. I think that looks kind of good right there. Maybe a little, take down a little more. Cool. I think that looks good right there. Noise reduction. I like to use a little noise reduction even if I don't see the noise, because sometimes there is subtle noise in there that you can't see. So I'll just put a little bit in there, just cause, you know what I mean? Just a little sprinkle, you know what I'm saying? Just make sure I'm good, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Okay, cool. So now that I've made all those little fine adjustments, now I'm gonna go all the way back to the top and I'm gonna go to my exposure. Now I can brighten up the whole thing as a little bit, as a whole, just a little bit, not too much. Boom. And then I'm gonna add a little contrast just to kind of give it a little texture. Boom. And that's done, man. Simple tweak. I think that looks good. So if you toggle from the original, if you look, this is the original. And boom, this is what we did to it. Looks beautiful. We're gonna do one more. All right, I'll take this one. This one, for example, this 500, same thing. Well, actually, if you see it, it's already well lit, it's well lit, so I don't really have to touch with none of the exposure and stuff. I'll even give it a little shadow, but I don't even have to do that. So we're gonna skip this whole section here, and we're gonna go to the tint. Again, I do the temperature because I want the walls to pop on the temperature. So I'm gonna add a little temperature. Just see, boom. Oh yeah, it looks good. See that's making that picture pop, nice. And again, I'm gonna add a little saturation. You know what I'm saying? Just to get the color to pop a little bit, just a little bit. Yeah. See, now I can see the blues and that yellow. You know what I'm saying? Let me make it pop a little more with the yellow. There we go. That looks good. That looks good. Take that down just a little bit. Boom. All right. So now we're gonna skip all of this. Texture. Again, because this is kind of a brickish wall, I'm gonna add a little texture, not too much. Definitely add a little dehaze, get that tint off your picture. Cool. Some people go hard on the dehaze. It's up to you. Sharpening. Same thing. I like to add a little sharpening, just a little bit, not a lot. Boom. Add a little denoise. Same thing, just a little bit. Get the little fragments out, you know, and voila. Again, this is another shot that I took with the low lighting of the G7 and the 25mm lens. These are the shots. It looks pretty good. So now exposure. I really don't even have to adjust the exposure, honestly. Really, I can give it just a little bit, just to give it a little brightness. But this is done. Again, we're gonna toggle. That's the original picture. It was already pretty well lit when I took the shot, so I didn't really have to go too hard. It was already pretty good. I just wanted to just touch up certain things, and you know, that's the final edit. Just subtle. Everything. See, the key thing is when you're touching up. The key thing is when you're touching up pictures, you want everything to be subtle. So there you have it. That's how I got my low lighting shots with the G7 and the 25mm G Vario lens, man. And not to mention, hold on, real quick. This lens is very, very inexpensive. This lens comes in at about $150. And you know, if you think that's expensive, then price you a Canon lens and a Sony lens and then come holler at me. You tell me what costs more. But it's your boy, Diamond. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Press Record. I hope you learned something today. Do me a favor, like I said in the beginning, hit the button, like, subscribe, comment. It'll help your boy's channel out, man. You know, Happy New Year, everybody. Let's do it. See you next episode. Easy.